Heart attacks are very common in the U.S. Unfortunately, about every 40 seconds, someone in the U.S. is having a cardiac arrest. John's story, when I heard it, I get goosebumps every time I think about it and I hear it. And when Kiyla shared that she saved her father-in-law because she knew how to do CPR, I was like, we have to share this story.
It was a nice day. Kiyla and my granddaughter Scout were going on the boat with my wife Connie and I. So we were heading up. It was a beautiful day up the river, going to a place called Pillars, a sandbar. I got up to probably within about 200-300 yards of the sandbar and was looking and could see that it was busy. And the area I was in right then was shallow, so I slowed down. And just because of the depth, trying to find a place where I was going to pull the boat in. And that's the last I remember.
John had slowed down the boat. I didn't really know why. And then all of a sudden he kind of looked like he was turning towards me to say something, and then he just fell out of his chair. Got down next to him and I shouted his name out. And I, was shaking his shoulder and, can you hear me? And no response. So I checked for a pulse in his neck and did not find a pulse. And Connie was towards the front of the boat at the time. And she was, kind of walking towards us asking, what's going on? And I said, Connie, he doesn't have a pulse. You need to call 911.
So John had a 100% blockage in the artery that goes to the bottom portion of his heart. So that part of the heart muscle was not getting any blood or oxygen. When that happens, that part of the muscle starts to die and becomes electrically unstable. And so it doesn't pump normally, and it can cause arrhythmias. And in his case, he had the worst type of arrhythmia, which is called ventricular fibrillation. And that basically means the pumping chamber of the heart is just standing still.
So thankfully, I had that background in CPR training, so I knew, when he was unresponsive, I need to check for a pulse, is he breathing, and get that CPR started immediately. Other than a mannequin, this was my first, time doing CPR. So having to do it on my father-in-law was not a fun scenario at all. But emotionally, I just knew what needed to be done. And I was in the moment just thinking, this is what I need to do.
I met him when he arrived to the ER, and by that time, he had already regained consciousness. He was actually awake and alert when I got to the ER. He didn't look good. He was still sick and acutely ill, but they had successfully restored his heart rhythm by that time, so he was conscious. The way they had restored it was by the emergency medical personnel had put him on a defibrillator and shocked the rhythm that was going on. And so when I saw him, he was awake. I assessed him in the emergency room with our ER staff. We got basic labs and EKG. All the information we had suggested he was having a heart attack. And so at that point, we made the decision to take him right away to the cath lab to see what was going on and see if we could fix it. The first thing we worry about before discharge is neurologic damage, and fortunately, he was fine. I mean, he didn't really have any neurologic injury that we could detect, and I think that's mostly because of the quick CPR he received.
John, I'm so glad you're okay from that day. I was scared to death. They say the weight lifts off of your shoulders. I actually felt a weight lift off of my shoulders when I heard you were okay.
I'm glad I was able to.
Yeah. We are able to be here tonight because 2 people on that boat were able to perform CPR on John when he had his cardiac event. And the American Heart Association programs and research that just helps fund this sort of education for patients and family members.
The police department, the fire department, the EMS, and Mercy cardiologists, you know, they all work together as a team to save my life. And I can't tell them enough how much I appreciate it and the work they do every day.
So thank you to everyone that has donated in the past, and we encourage you to donate now and in the future so we can continue to understand the heart, how to battle heart disease, and how to save more lives.